There's no time. You have to take me to the commander right away. I have so much that I have to tell you. I know there's horrible burns on my face.
You're the commander.
I'm the commander.
That was last episode.
Oh, dang it.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
Hurry, I'm
right.
in a time warp. I'm in the wrong episode. I need help.
See, there was a little bit of time where I went into 311 in 310. So that's where that goes.
Great. And so what I'll do is I'll take clips of both and just switch them, and they'll just flow naturally into the conversation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I look
A lot
forward
of
to
extra work for you, but worth it.
Huge amount of work.
Totally. That's right, you guys. We're here at another episode. It's Jake and Becca and Xander, and we're going to talk about Star Trek.
Nailed it.
You
It's
know.
Goldie Watch.
Love it.
Who talks next?
I don't know, but I'm a commander now. So
Sorry.
I
Oh, congratulations on your promotion.
Thank you.
Look, I'm ready for this episode because you know why? It's the outrageous Akona all over
It
again.
is.
Super babely man here just to be saved from his tortured soul.
Yeah, but instead of like seducing anybody, he's punching his way through his problems, right?
Yeah.
But only if he's provoked. He's really nonviolent and sweet because he's a hot guy rebel.
If only we gave him more time aboard the Enterprise, he would definitely do some seduction.
For sure.
This isn't who he was meant to be. There's a biomechanical warrior who's been implanted
Through
and they
face
must
paint.
separate the man through face paint, through a child's carnival face paint.
Just on one side of the face.
Yeah. Wow. What's this episode?
The Hunted.
That's right. It's The Hunted. An escaped prisoner leads the Enterprise crew to discover an ugly secret of a seemingly idyllic planet.
All right, let's start with a low jib shot coming into
Ooh.
a lobby of a hotel with a nice chandelier and everything's made of stone. Costumes. I'm thinking, remember when we were on that planet where the women were in charge and all the
Yep.
men had to wear sexy V-necks?
Yeah.
But like more
The
covered
opposite.
up.
Turtleneck and
The
blazer.
turtleneck, yeah. That was the bluest turtleneck with a like very tight little blazer that James Cromwell was wearing.
I love James
Legend of
Cromwell.
Blazer? Who's James Cromwell? What's he
James
doing
Cromwell, you know James Cromwell. He's played the president like 1,000 times.
A
in
great
different
character
films.
actor.
Yeah, very good character actor. If
here?
you watch
More than Bill
Succession,
Paxton?
yeah,
Pullman. I forget which one.
Bill Paxton is the more character actor for sure. James Cromwell, if you watch Succession, he plays Ewan Roy, and he also is the farmer in Babe.
Babe.
Mhm.
That'll do, pig.
Oh, well,
That'll do, babe.
now I know him.
He also recently came up on. I rarely go on Facebook anymore, but I stumbled on there, and he was a suggested friend. I don't know how.
Wow.
But among
You
other
accepted?
I did not. I don't. I'm not even sure it really was James Cromwell, but like it's Facebook, and he's old enough. It's possible.
You should
Oh,
message
yeah,
me
no,
like,
it was him for sure.
hey,
it
Jim,
was.
what's up? I just saw
Hey,
your
Jim.
episode.
Yeah, I
you
just
relate.
caught that episode from 35 years ago. Great job.
You'll get it.
Yeah.
But we see him with a little mustache too. And he's talking about how great his colony is and how they should be able to join the Federation. And so Riker and Picard are on a tour. They're saying everything looks great, but it turns out, there's a problem. A prisoner escaped from their penal colony moon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really wish that everyone on this planet had that same mustache. Because sometimes in Star Trek, instead of having alien costumes, they just give everyone one defining feature. It could have been a mustache.
Could have been a mustache or at least a forehead ridge or something.
They're all just cops. Like, it was kind of a cop mustache.
Kinda. They're like mall cops.
Yeah, bushy and narrow.
Yeah. But there's constant talk of like how stuffy it is, and it seems like everybody's following the rules
Yeah, there's a real administrative kind of kink in everything around here.
or lack of kink, depends on how you.
Well, it depends if you're talking because Riker's like, yeah, I don't want to have my
Yeah,
my shore leave here.
Riker's anti-horny on me on this one.
Well, the Federation is pretty strict about who they let in. You need to have a harmonious planet, and this is not that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's got to be tough.
we like kind of open the door to the discussion of the Prime Directive, which we'll revisit at the end of the episode in some ways, right? Of like how much we're interfering with their society.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, we decide to interfere with their society because they asked for help. And so
right,
you gotta ask.
Yeah.
So they're like, "Can your ship
other arbitrary rules that we're going to decide as we go."
Yeah.
The planet, by the way, is Angosia III, and the prisoner escaped from the maximum security prison on Lunar 5. I imagine 1 through 4 are a little chiller. Like Lunar 1 is just tax crimes.
Tax crimes, yeah. 5 is maximum.
It goes
security.
up.
Yeah.
Tax.
Yeah, Lunar 5 was basically just Australia, like Moon Australia.
Moon Australia. And just like Down Under, everybody's super babely.
Yeah, and it's dangerous.
Yeah, and with great names like Roga Dinar.
Yeah.
And they're really great at just flipping people over their shoulder, too.
Yeah, excellent. Before we get to when he comes aboard the Enterprise and there's just a lot of poorly done fighting, maybe it was choreographed to be that way. I'm not saying the choreography was bad. I'm just saying everyone was bad at fighting except for him. But before that, there's all this stuff in space about him being untraceable, and they can't figure out where he is on the ship, and then he's in an escape pod. Evasion.
Yeah, so while the away team is down on the planet conducting these negotiations, they're like, "We got it. You got a prisoner. You're not even part of the Federation. How bad could this be? Go ahead, Data." And we get to see Data in the center chair, like commanding the Enterprise. And for some reason uses like the visual scanner to come up against this asteroid that blocks their vision.
Yeah, he followed procedure, he says later, but it's like, you should be keeping an eye on this guy as he goes around an asteroid.
Right. But there are some
object
really...
permanence is a problem for androids.
There are some really cool tactics that are employed here, though, and they go into it later with some technobabble, but basically, like, he hides in the magnetic pole of this asteroid and then ejects the, like, essentially engine of this thing, and we find out later that he has some sort of modification that allows him to not have life signs detectable, so as far as we know from sensors, there's no survivors.
Technobabble can only go so far before it's technomagic because...
Oh, this is technomagic for sure.
Yeah, sure you can maybe pause a heartbeat or something, but you're not going to make all of your blood cold. Like, how are you not having any detectable life signs?
I think they said that not that he stops his electrical signals, but he shields them. So he has a way of like not transmitting.
Like a cloaking. I see.
Yeah. So I kind of bought it a little bit.
It's a very cloaking. We buy an individual cloaking.
Yeah,
yeah. Like what they're trying to do is they're trying to set up in a Star Trek way that he's so super soldiery that like he can even evade most of our standard operating procedures, right? And eventually, because we're the crew of the Enterprise. Yeah, because we're the crew of the Enterprise, we are obviously going to eventually thwart him, but we need to show and demonstrate how badass he can be. And I thought they did a pretty good job of that. Like,
me too.
Every single time they think they have him, he's always got another trick, which is kind of a fun way of doing that. My issue with it was, I guess it took 45 minutes to do it.
Oh, yeah. I lived for it because here's the thing is that I play a weekly Star Trek Adventures game and I was like, oh, look at all these tactics I need to write down and implement.
Yeah. I will say, like, I was kind of interested to see this all from his perspective, which is not something we do in Star Trek. In Star Trek, the way the show works is that we kind of, it's serialized, right? So we have the same kind of storyline also from a group perspective for the most part. Sometimes we'll focus on an individual character much more than others, but for the most part, it's like the ensemble show. But we've never like gone into the perspective of someone who's not from on board the Enterprise and followed them around as they went through this, which would be an interesting way of doing that because we get to see the tricks from his side of it, which would be kind of fun. Yeah, almost a Rambo type situation or something.
Real Rambo.
Well, it turns into like another genre again of that they're exploring, the sort of escape from the Enterprise prison break style show.
Yeah, it's basically Die Hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, Die Hard's a good comparison.
He's even in a Jeffries tube.
Roga is such an interesting... When we first meet him, meet him verbally, it's Deanna Troy that, of course, can sense his turmoil and emotion. I don't know.
Yeah, she's
I'm
just
not on
walking
today.
by. She's just walking by and like it's like, oh, someone's having a breakdown. And
Yeah.
like just kind of
How
senses it.
often? That's got to happen 30 times a day. Every
Yeah.
breakup on the ship,
Yeah.
every lost my position, got promoted, got demoted. She
You
has to
just
know
see
about
a
all
little
of it.
peeking head coming in like, hey.
Hey, could you tone down the emotion
Couldn't help
because
but feel ya.
You felt sad.
I sense you are sad. And we feel for him, and he doesn't seem like a heartless killer, but he describes himself as a heartless killer and says he would kill Troy if it would get him out right then, and he doesn't feel good even admitting that. So we know he has a soul and a conscience, and we're provided with this question. Of course, we know now super soldier, but what a terrible quote unquote gift to be given.
What a great parallel too to look at it from this perspective of post-traumatic stress disorder, especially from soldiers. You could probably draw a lot of parallels to what happened to like with the Vietnam War, where there was this big push, go fight for your country and your people, and as soon as they came back, they were seen as these violent soldiers that did horrible things and had a hard time integrating back into society.
Did you
And
ever
that's
see
still a thing. And the metaphor was very clearly spelled out until it was no longer a metaphor at the end of the episode. And they say, well, we sent them there and then they turn into heartless killers and we don't want them anymore. So we reject them from our society. It's like, oh, yeah, we do that. Because rehabilitation for soldiers is not what it should be. Even today, people are still fighting in the Middle East.
But what they
go
to show, especially through Troy, is that there are options and that it's not something to give up on, that even a little bit of progress is something.
And Data is the one that says you were programmed. You should be able to be reprogrammed.
Right.
Hopefully, and that's true. Ideally, for where his future is, right? Have you guys ever seen First Blood, the first Rambo movie?
Mm-mm.
So Rambo, like as a franchise, became very like action movie and like insane. But like the first one is about a Vietnam vet who is like treated poorly by local cops and goes on a rampage, but not like a killing rampage so much as like trying to defend himself and escape from people who are persecuting him. And it's a huge kind of misunderstanding. He has a lot of trauma from Vietnam. And so it's actually a very similar story, I'm realizing, in the way you just recounted it, Xander. But there were stories like this a lot, and like trying to show that the way we treat veterans is we disregard what the humanity in them sometimes. And that's very, very important that we don't.
30 years later, nothing's changed.
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, in some way things have changed. We're much more aware of what trauma is now, and I think it's a much bigger discussion that happens in veterans affairs and veterans communities. I think it wasn't acknowledged for a long time, and it was, be a tough man and live with what you saw on the front, or tough whoever's on the front lines. But that has dialed back a lot more, and they're talking much more openly because of the suicide numbers, amongst other things, and all the other post-traumatic stress that has been reported. Like that's the killer of most veterans. It's not the effects of war beyond. It's the mental toll that it can take.
Yeah, and that is coinciding with a broader welcoming in our zeitgeist to dealing with mental health and acknowledging mental health problems.
Yeah, and there was still a stigma while this was airing, and you can see sort of this rhetoric that he spews back at Troy of like, oh, well, a girl hurt me when I was younger, so now I'm a killer. And he's sort of like, oh, this is what you do, right? This is therapy. And she's just sitting there taking all of these attacks until finally she's like, okay, now that we're through that, what's going on? Like,
yeah, you can hear the indoctrination in him too, of just like him finding the excuses or the reasons.
Now that you've finished your tantrum.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that we saw a strong Troy in this, not only in dealing with like this patient, but standing up to Picard, saying like, no, there's something here that is worth investigating, and there's something else under the surface. To when we eventually get at the end on the explanations, Troy is at the forefront of speaking up, which I think is a great character development thing for her.
Well, as you mentioned last episode, she wasn't utilized enough in figuring out the mystery of the person we have on board, and now she is. And so like it's great to have that insight, especially because she can point out the mystery without solving it for us, right? We can be along with it thanks to her.
Well, yeah, and were she not on board, probably a counselor is standard staff to have on a Federation starship, but not a half Betazoid one. And
Right.
how many times have they just decided, got stamped for approval for entry into the Federation for a planet that had such violent or such, flippant ways of dealing with their people and sublimating them?
Probably often.
Subjugating. Sublimating is when you melt something.
Yeah. Or dissolve. I don't know.
Yeah. Also, that reminds me of dealing with Federation, something we didn't talk about at all last episode. They gave Picard a lot of autonomy to do what he wanted to do on behalf of the Federation in that episode with the Romulans.
Right. And we see a little bit of that with this as well. It's Picard's basically left up to his own devices on whether or not this whole planet can join the Federation, and he has the ultimate say. And the Federation's just like, we trust you, Picard, whatever you say.
I mean, Picard is to be trusted, but are all the Federation captains that good at stuff? I don't know.
We hope.
Impossible.
That's the thing is like, yeah, that's an interesting question, Becca. Is what
they almost gave it to Riker, so.
Well, it's like, are Picard's choices like what the Federation captains are trained to do, or is this an instinctual choice of him? And we don't always get to compare those very often, because any other time we see a captain on another ship, it's mostly for exposition of some sort, right? Or they'll get blown up shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
Or possessed by some alien species.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think like the show gives us the permission to believe that Picard can call the shots in some way because of his command, right?
Yeah.
We never really consult Starfleet too much. I think it'd be distracting to do so anyway. But like, here's my issue with this one. I felt, and I said this last episode, like I felt this episode was kind of like, despite all the cool action, was still kind of slow for me, because there's so much talking about one person the whole time.
Right.
And like, while we had a lot of talking about the Defector in the Defector, it was more about the plot around it and like figuring out his mystery. Whereas we solved this guy's mystery somewhat quickly. In fact, we're told very frequently that he's a super soldier. And then we get to play with him thwarting the Enterprise for a half hour, which again, while fun, didn't change much. There wasn't a lot of development beyond it. Did you guys feel that way?
I feel like this served to prove the fallibility of the Enterprise, especially since we've been going along. Everybody is perfect and the Enterprise always works and there's nobody that can take it down. And then we get this, just one person on the inside, one super soldier can do all of this damage, just to show that, yes, it is still fallible and things can go wrong.
Yeah, I like it because I thought that the soldier himself was an awesome actor. And I didn't feel the same just emotional tie-in personally to what was happening in the previous episode. I don't know. It's like, don't trust Romulans. Sure. It just felt more nuanced of, look at the way people treat their prison population.
Yeah.
That was really compelling. But I didn't write down that much about it because it wasn't that complex. It was what was complex was the performance.
Yeah. Right. Not the fight choreo, though. Fight choreo is not
very simple fight choreo.
Yeah.
Look, when this guy runs near you, fall down or like
tumble over him, like you're doing a somersault on him.
It almost felt like improvised wrestling. It's like, why don't you guys just tackle each other and we'll just see. Yeah, first take worked. Great.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Got it.
I'm pretty sure O'Brien was a much better hand-to-hand fighter than any of the security team. What's that about?
Well, O'Brien has the
training.
You.
Yeah, we got an action figure right up there.
Right in Irish, man.
Yeah. But also, there's a lot of techno magic with this super soldier serum that he has, because a lot of it is explained away like there's no life signs, he's super strong, he's got quick reflexes. But what the higgity heck did he do to the transport beam? Was that because of that?
One...
He's resistant to lasers. He could fight off the beam.
I guess it'll explode but not kill him, even though Troy says it's gonna. Like, what? Is there anything?
He also has infallible memory and is super
he can remember
cunning.
84 faces of the people he killed.
Much
That's
like
just
the movie
trauma.
Lucy, he's using a higher percentage of his brain, which I think we're all capable of if we just tapped into it. If you haven't seen this movie, Scarlett Johansson does a bunch of drugs and uses 100% of her brain and turns into a supercomputer. It's so awesome.
That does sound like a Dream Becca movie.
Yeah. I love
Does a
that
bunch of
movie.
drugs, becomes a supercomputer.
I'm working
My
on
goals.
it. Good thing, Mom.
Yeah. You want my advice? Double it. That's a good
Like that
line.
line. I like
Yeah.
that line. Yeah.
Can we talk about a really good line? So Picard phones down, "Hey, Mr. V-neck, farmer, that won't do." He tells Picard it's a matter of internal security why they couldn't reprogram their super soldiers, and he can't tell him anymore. And Picard gets off the phone and says, "Age-old cry of the oppressor."
Yeah.
And I thought it was a great line.
It
Yes.
was a good line.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
You made these soldiers. You have to figure out how to reintegrate them.
Yeah. We also saw a capability of the Enterprise that I had forgotten about and haven't seen before. It's the filling the room with a gas. In this case,
Yeah, very villain's lair. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, anethazine.
I think every time they filled a room with gas, it's not worked, right? Like, hasn't that always
Kinda.
failed?
Yeah.
Which is probably good because, like, you don't want the protagonist gassing people. Like, it always feels like an unfair thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
We'll
never
put-
good. It's never endearing for you to
Yeah,
watch.
right.
Fill the room
your
with
favorite
gas,
captain.
but every room also has a suit in it, just in case.
Yeah, just in case. Oh, he put the suit on.
He put the
Now
suit
I
on.
get it.
I do love that we gave Worf an opportunity to outthink him too.
Yeah.
Like
Worf
that's
was
the
finally
thing.
good at his job.
Finally.
Like that's the thing with writing a badass character is if you let him or her constantly do everything perfectly, then you get no growth on anybody else and everybody kind of looks the fool, right? Like it's nice to let someone else do a counter, and also that makes your badass have an opportunity to overcome even that, as he did. He still overcame Worf, mostly through just toppling a bunch of crates onto him.
Yeah.
With those crates, like they do a good job with the set design of them looking heavy, but as soon as they move them, you can tell how lightweight they are.
Yeah.
Look, I just really need the security team to work out more. That's all I need.
I had the thought as they were like getting pummeled in the transporter room, I was like, they are just a bunch of nerds on a ship, aren't they? Even the security are a bunch of nerds.
I feel like there was like a utopia idea when they were casting of like, well, anybody could be security,
Yeah.
even you little guys.
All you need is a phaser.
Right.
Yeah, but that's not really how it works. Can I call back to when Rona first comes aboard the ship and there is a phaser scene where
Yeah.
Worf and Riker finally get him and turn their phaser up to exactly what we saw Riker turn his to, which
To
was green
evaporate.
level 10, to evaporate that woman, the assassin, a couple episodes ago.
But he did say stun maximum setting.
Maximum settings, yeah.
He said that. I
He
just
said-
want to say
But then
that the
there-
visual setting was not any different.
There are some crazy phaser shenanigans in this episode. He literally uses a phaser to power a transporter console, right?
Yep. And sets
Isn't that how
one
he gets out of
to
the cargo bay?
explode in the turbo
Yeah.
lift. But
What
Worf
can't these things
calmly
do?
walks over and disables it.
I thought he was going to shut it and be like, everybody out. But he's
Yeah.
like, I'll just, oh, yeah, it's
Oh,
one
the
of
battery
these.
hatch.
Yeah,
gets loose.
the face he gave was like, well, of course, you just hit the switch. And
Yeah, go before the timer goes off.
Right.
But then, okay, so then they're going to transport him back to the prison people on the planet, the wardens or whatever, and he is able to escape because he can't be transported because he just wishes he won't be
Yeah,
real hard.
What was that? Sorry,
So-
Becca. Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand this one.
Well, one
Like-
of the
We've
rules
already
that they
techno-magicked away.
Yeah, one of the rules that they did follow is you cannot transport through shields. So they're like, okay, he's in the brig, so we've got to put down the shields, and in that instant, we'll instantly transport him so that he will dematerialize. But then I don't know. Was there anything?
Where did he go? They were just like,
Memory
oh,
Alpha?
he got away from it.
Yeah.
Oh
like,
yeah,
it seemed
memory
like
alpha. I don't even think they bother. Let's
You
find
just
out.
squeeze the
He, like,
glutes
resisted
so
or-
hard
You squeeze your glutes so hard.
that you can't be transported.
His butt's too firm, Captain.
In that
Anyway,
jumpsuit?
then he does this very clever thing where he knows they can't read his bio signs on the ship, so he's just like opening and closing vent doors. So they'll say,
Yeah.
"Oh, over here, over
Sus.
here,"
That's
and
sus.
Data It's super sus. And
Mhm.
Data is onto it. He knows this trail is artificial and that they shouldn't necessarily fall for the idea that he's going everywhere that they see light up on the screen. So it was an instance of Data taking previous knowledge and knowledge about his opponent and using that to his advantage.
Yeah, they've done a good job kind of sprinkling in little things from previous episodes. They definitely referenced in the last episode with Worf and that Romulan about their previous interaction with the Romulans, right? So they're still peppering that in very nicely.
Yeah.
He also Rona got into engineering and disabled multiple people after saying he killed many people to escape prison. He's very capable of murder, but again, thank God Geordi is safe.
Yeah.
Because who do I gotta fight?
I feel like that's a safe choice of the writers of like, well, we don't want this guy murdering the crew because then it's going to be an unforgivable thing to the audience and they're going to want blood.
Well,
and so we still need to identify with this guy.
There's a couple of things with that too. One, we find out later that he's not aggressive unless provoked. So if the engineering team did not seem like they were going to harm him, he would have to be able to disable them. So like intent for intent, I guess.
That's a great point. Yeah. And if you have a security team, double it.
That's my advice.
Also, I completely forgot regarding James Cromwell, something I forgot to mention. He plays a very key role in Star Trek history because he is Zephram
Cochrane.
I forgot about that.
Who dat?
He's the first person who discovered, I think, warp drive, right?
Well, he had contact with the Vulcans.
Oh, first, that's what it is. He was the first
contact.
person to get contacted by the Vulcans in human society in the past.
And then use that to perpetuate space travel with humans. But First Contact Day is actually coming up or has passed, depending on when this comes out, on April 5th.
This will be out. Oh, it was passed.
It was passed.
Hope you
Wow,
celebrated.
that was a great day, huh?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I loved it.
Happy
so many
belated First
Vulcans.
Contact Day.
Thank you.
Great.
And to you.
Memory Alpha, by the way, Xander doesn't answer the transporter thing, so I guess he just can evade transport and just appear in other places. Like that was the most like what just happened.
It wasn't
for
that
me.
he appeared somewhere else. I got the impression that he resisted somehow, and there was an explosion that made the security team and Troy back off. We see them flinch, and he's still there, but they are sort of disabled. And he goes out the door.
Ran out. Oh, okay, that would make
but I don't know
more sense.
What he would do to disrupt a transporter beam in that way that it would cause that reaction.
Well, if we had a shot of his glutes, we would know.
Right,
but I guess we're just gonna have to figure it out.
Yeah, I chalked it up to the soldier serum.
Michael Piller, producer on the show, remarked of this. The whole theme of the show was let's look at how society treats its returning veterans. I thought from a conceptual level that we handled it well, and we came up with good science fiction to make it interesting. There's some argument that the best soldier ever created bringing the Enterprise to its knees is a little hard to believe, but that might have been a weakness of the show. I enjoyed it and was not ashamed. I mean,
I like that they have to add whether or not they were ashamed of their episode.
Well, because one of the things that I think we talked about this in the Story Bible episode of like the Enterprise is top of its class. Like they usually shouldn't be thwarted because of some superior technology. They are in a lot of ways the superior force out there. What they should be thwarted by and having challenges are philosophical dilemmas and mysteries and science escapades and stuff. They will be outclassed, but like they don't want that to be the fallibility of the Enterprise.
Their fallibility turns out fight choreo.
Yep. Facts.
The shots too, like they were so far away from some of that point where I'd be like Riker getting flipped over.
Yeah.
It's like,
The secret of action is close-ups and quick cuts.
Yeah. One day they'll get it right.
Someone will.
But yeah,
Maybe
and
not
then we had the full dramatic standoff at the end too, where it's revealed that all of the super soldiers have come together to rebel against the society. And we have this dramatic moment on planet.
Where did that? I felt that kind of came out of nowhere. Like when did they plan that?
Well, because it was just assumed that all of these super soldiers are as good as Rona who got out, and so they could basically do anything. And so once
They were just staying in there because they were sad boys that didn't know where to go.
Yeah. like through all the rigmarole on the Enterprise, eventually he was able to go to the transport ship.
That's true. That's right. He did gain control of this transport ship, so he probably liberated. Okay,
and he's like holds the 2 pilots at gunpoint or whatever, and then takes command. And then we assume he goes to.
That's so much happens off screen. I guess I didn't quite realize that. I was like, oh, I guess this is gonna solve itself. But then we get to this prime directive dilemma of like Picard being like, well, you've made this bed, now lie in it situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But where does that phrase really come from? Who was asking this last week? Somebody asked me, why would you lie in the maid bed?
I think we were were we talking about it on this podcast, or was that something else? I was in that conversation.
Oh, that was Whitney asking us when we were playing Gameplay.
That's what it was. Gameplay Saturdays, 1:00.
Hey. But I like, he has a great line at the end of like, we'll reconsider your application in a while once your society has changed, and it seems like it's about to change in a few minutes. Bye.
Oh snap! Bomb drop. Mic drop. Mics and bombs. Bombs and mics.
Yeah, I guess like that's what I'm saying is like they kind of just they figured it out in the end after all that action, which I think though the choreography was a little sloppy, the action was at least interesting. I was engaged.
Yeah, I'd rather watch someone running around and fighting than talking about it any day.
That's true. And the interesting thing about this target was that not the hand-to-hand combat, it was the tactics that he would do. So he was rearranging things in engineering, or he set off something to explode somewhere else. That was the cool stuff.
That you will take with you on your Star Trek adventures.
Yes, totally. 100%. Watch out.
Well, speaking of more Star Trek adventures, next week we'll be back with The High Ground, where Dr. Crusher is captured by terrorists who want to involve the Federation in their struggle for freedom.
Bum, bum, bum.
Bum, bum, bum.
Hey, since I have your ear, I just want to mention to everyone, if you enjoy To Boldly Watch, please find us on Apple Podcasts and rate and review. Okay, thanks, bye.
Yay!
Namely, 5 stars. That's
I don't know. Up to you.
No, if you don't like the show, just keep it to yourself. Like that's a secret that you can hold.
Yeah.
If you do love the show, then share it with the world. But if you're not enjoying it, first off, why are you listening? And second, don't tell anybody.
They wouldn't have made it this far if they weren't 5-star people.
Oh, nice. We're going to review you 5 stars if you review us.
Yeah, I give you 5 stars if you give us 5 stars. That's the mark.
There you go. Just mention in your review that you are a 5-star person. Then we'll know.
Amen.
Amen.
Engage.
Amen.
Oh.